All righty, well, welcome back to Odd Jobs Hijinks. What are we doing today, Josh?
Today we are going to go over to the dry kiln, open it up. I've got my moisture meter with me, and we're going to check the moisture content of these boards I've had in there drying for the library project.
Right.
This would be the bookshelves itself. I've got a bunch of 1x6s I had custom milled just for this project. As I said before in other videos, we have a lot of sawmills in the area, and the timber industry is down right now, so no one's cutting the high dollar amount lumber like black walnut. They're going to hold until the prices come back up.
Right.
So there was none available. So I had to go and talk to someone who has acreage in black walnut trees, and he was willing to cut one down, and we agreed on a price. He cut it and built it up for me. And since the day I picked it up, which was a day after it was a standing live tree, it's been in the dry kiln over here.
Okay.
In, maybe 2.5 months.
All right.
And it's getting towards the fall, the end of the year. So the temperatures have been cooler. We even had a freeze already this year, early morning light freeze. So I don't know how well it dried out, but I do know that temperatures inside this metal box that I built around the stack of wood were quite a bit higher than what the air temperature was. And I ventilated it properly, so it should have had good breathing. So we're just going to walk over here and open it up and see where we're at.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look. And with the concrete house in the background, we're going to walk over to the kiln.
Looks like we might get some rain today, Reckless.
Yeah, I was looking at the clouds and the radar, and as we film this, the rain's probably an hour or two away.
So I got this antenna here that I picked up not too long ago.
The roof on the kiln.
Yeah, just sitting on top of it there. We'll have some other videos coming up about stuff like this.
You can hear a goat in the background.
Yeah. I just fed them a few minutes ago. They should be
Pretty happy.
pretty content right at the moment.
So this is a home-built kiln that Josh has put together with metal siding, and
It's just a metal box, folks. Just something to keep the rainwater off of it. And because it's a metal box, you know, when the sun beats on it, especially green, it absorbs more heat than any other color in the spectrum.
right. I noticed you had the lighter pieces on the ends,
Yeah, that's just because what I had. I was out of the green.
and then
And
you
I
got
have it the top open on this end, and on the back side I had the bottom open. So the air could come in through that end,
convection.
down low,
Uh-huh.
and convect up and come out this end.
Okay, cool.
Just really a metal box. And inside here I just have a stack of wood. I have stacked on sticks. And I just built a wooden frame around it, and I just screwed this metal to the frame. Not complicated at all. Just some scrap stuff I had sitting around. And you'll see what I mean when I open it up, because I believe I actually built the frame out of some old 5/4 deck boards that were kind of rotted, but not totally rotted.
He's got a lot of lumber in there, folks, and this is just rough milled lumber, just like he showed in our previous video. And I'll put a card up where we show you him actually milling the lumber out, milling a log. And but this is similar, and but it was just, you know, lumber that needed to be dried out. Now, Josh, what do you have here?
This is a moisture meter. You can get these just about anywhere, Amazon, eBay. It actually measures the moisture content in more than just lumber. It'll do concrete. It's got a digital readout. Has different settings. I have it set on hardwood.
On hardwood. Isn't that interesting? And then underneath that cap,
yep, we have
two
these two
probes.
pins.
Those
And
are
so
pretty sharp.
if you just lay it on the surface, it's going to tell you what the content is of the surface.
Okay.
If you push these in
Uh-huh.
to the wood, it's going to tell you what the moisture content of the wood that's at the tip.
Ah.
Okay.
So it's an electrical current in between.
Yes. So when I put my finger on here,
Right.
it says I'm 18.9% myself.
Right. At the hardwood setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've checked this on some other wood. I've checked it on kiln dried 2x4s in a framed house that had been framed for quite a while and was definitely dry. And it was reading about 8-9%.
Okay.
And I've checked it against some really freshly sawn cypress, and it was reading 40-50%. I've checked it against particle board that was close to a countertop, and it was about 15-20%, which would make sense. And I've checked it on a desktop that was 100 years old that's been sitting in a house for a long time, and it was reading 4%. So I'd say it's probably pretty accurate as far as these go.
And you know, you're just trying to get a general idea.
I'm just trying to get a general
you know,
idea. Generally, when I would do something like this, I would just take a piece of this in my shop and cut it and see what the sawdust felt like.
The consistency of the dust.
If the sawdust is really dry, the wood's really dry. If the sawdust is piling up and you can squeeze it back together in your hands, yeah, you're probably at 40%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, idealistically, less than 8% would be great for what we're doing.
Uh-huh.
But I would still proceed at about 12 because there's still going to be some shop time from now. By the time I plane all these down and get them all glued together and get them all planed down again, sanded, and then take them and assemble them.
And tell the folks too, you know, the reason your concern's probably not the right word, but the reason you're very much interested in the moisture content is as this wood dries out, it shrinks.
It's going to shrink, yes. And so if I was to glue it all together wet and then it shrank, it would just pull itself apart.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to bend and twist and do what it's going to do in the drying process.
Right.
And if you put it all together wet and then it dries, then it's going to bend and twist and you'll end up with something you're not happy with.
I see. Okay.
So idealistically, you want your lumber dry.
Right.
As you're getting, you know, up to your final stage.
Understood. All right.
You can see some of these have bowed. You know, this one here has bowed for sure.
A little bit, yeah.
And it's not really a surprise because you have all this heartwood on this side of the board. You can see it. See all this dark heartwood right here.
Right.
And then on this side of the board, you have all this lighter sapwood.
Right.
And just like if you had a metal strap, one side of it was copper and one side of it was stainless, and you heated it or cooled it, it would curl up like a pig's tail because the two pieces of metal are going to expand and contract at different rates.
Different rates.
The same thing's going on here between the super hard center, the heartwood on this board, as opposed to the sapwood on that side of it.
The lighter color.
Yes.
Interesting.
And you can see how it's definitely not flat. We'll be able to work with that still. So I'm going to go ahead and start checking some of these pieces.
All right.
And see where we're at.
I know everybody's curious now. That's coming in at 10. And you're pushing pretty good on it, aren't you? 11-ish.
I pushed that one in a little further.
And literally there's row upon row sitting on stakes, isn't there? So that you had good airflow.
Good airflow. I actually used 2x2s here. They're actually old pickets off of a porch railing I took off. So they're 1.5 inch by 1.5 inches.
Right.
And I have them stacked through here, and I even have them staggered. And the boards are gapped. They're not all jammed together. So air can, if you look through the whole stack, the boards are all gapped. Plenty of space underneath them all. And even my sticks are staggered. So I don't have a stick directly over another stick, because if it was, it's not going to dry the same in that area as it's going to dry someplace else.
And as we look down through here, folks, you can see the different layers of those pickets. Once you get down there, oh, turned off. 10.
10-7.
This is all under 12.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting a really consistent 10-11.
Awesome.
yeah, this has really worked out well. It's been, there's 12 right there, 13 to 11. The bottom board's 11. That's all pretty good. I'm actually happy.
Pretty pleased with that?
I'm very pleased with that because it's been in here for a couple months, and like I said, it's already winter time here. It's,
right.
It's November. It's been in here for a couple months, and the couple months it's been in here, it hasn't been our 98-degree summer that we had. It was in our fall.
Right.
And so the temperatures were cooler, and I wasn't sure how fast, but I did check this regularly. I'd come by here and feel inside and see, it'd be 20 degrees warmer in here than it was outside. So even on those 80-degree days, it was getting up over 100. And I attribute the moisture content that it is solely at the fact that it's been sitting here in this metal box, because I believe if it was sitting over there, matter of fact, I have some cedar right there. I saw milled up probably 2 years ago. We can go check it.
Yeah.
It's just sitting. I mean, you see it's getting rained on and stuff. It's been cut up for a while, but it's been sitting out. It's reading 10.
Okay.
But I milled all the cedar up a couple years ago, and it's been sitting in that stack
For a while.
For a while, yeah. All right. Well, I think what we're going to do is open this box up a little bit more, take some more of that lumber out of there, get it in the shop, and start biscuit jointing some stuff together. And we'll get back to you.
All right. So in the next segment, you'll see us in the shop.
Yeah, so I want to make sure I have at least one true edge on this that I'm going to clean up before I glue them together. got some small pieces stuck in here,
Right.
causing the blade to bind and the saw work harder than it needs to.
Some of it was coming out this little.
Yeah, when you're cutting little slivers like that, it will get caught down in there and it'll rub on the side of the blade and you'll hear the saw dragging. You don't want to continue to run like that. Another good sign that our wood is dry is just by looking at the sawdust.
It's not clumpy at all,
It's not clumpy at all. No, it's dusty dry.
Dusty dry.
And if it was not dusty dry, it would clump up and ball up and feel wet.
There's something really satisfactory watching you put those really clean edges on it.
Oh yeah. Okay, what I'm going for here is 1x12s. This is going to be a bookcase. It's going to be 12 inches deep. It's 14 feet long and about 8 foot to the ceiling. So I'm going to break it up into probably 3'4" sections, something about like that.
Makes sense.
So I'm going to use these 3 right here instead of taking the 1x6s and gluing them together to make 1x12s. I'm going to take these 3 1x4s and glue them together. That's why I caught both edges of this one, because it'll be the middle board and these will both be on the outside.
Okay.
And 6 foot's just what length the log wanted to be cut at. So now this is how I'm going to glue these 2 boards together. That's how this is going to go.
So you got one that's bowed downward.
One that's bowed down and one that's bowed up, and this one's bowed out that way and that one's bowed out that way. I'm going to try to glue them back together where they're opposing each other. And maybe it'll come out flat.
Interesting.
Worst case scenario, we're going to plane it flat.
Right, right.
So now I'm just going to mark where I want these to line up so I know where to make my biscuit joints. That's going to be pretty when that's glued together, isn't it? Be gorgeous.
And the ultimate length that you're going to need is what? Out of those?
8 foot will be the longest. Between 7 and 8.
7 and 8.
And that's how I ordered it all, as 4s and 8s. Because I knew that my shelves are going to be 3, 6, 3 something, you know, so 3 in the 3 range.
And how deep?
12 inches.
12.
In that range.
Yeah.
You know, most books will fit nicely on a 12-inch shelf. I actually like the way that looks better.
That's beautiful.
It doesn't matter at this point if the boards are the same thickness, as long as when I biscuit joint off the same face that I want matched up, the biscuit joiner is going to set it down to a certain depth. So when I squeeze it all together and the biscuit joint locks in there, these will be flush.
Okay. And then ultimately they get planed together.
And then they'll get planed together as one piece.
pretty too. Very little of it isn't pretty.
Yeah, if I kept every piece of wood that I ever had that I said, man, that's a beautiful piece of wood, I'd have a pile. I'm not going to use this one. It's got a lot of wind shake in it. It didn't true up on me right there. It's got some live edge there, and it's cupped pretty bad. I think we're going to hold off on those for right now. Not do those. All right, the biscuit joiner.
Alrighty, so we opened up the big gray box. What do we got here? Biscuit joint?
We have biscuits and the biscuit jointer. We have 10s and 20s, different sizes. We're going to start.
Is the 20 and the 10 and 20 the length?
It's the width. The width.
The width. Yeah.
Yeah, those are 10s, and that's a 20.
Yeah,
it's bigger all the way around.
Oh, okay. And you know there's got to be a special machine out there somewhere that makes those.
There is. And it's called the biscuit joiner. And this is the tool. This tool has a really unique table on it that's spring-loaded, as you can see. Has a depth adjustment here for the size biscuit you're using. It has a central lineup notch in it where you can line it right up on your marks, and then you just push it in.
Huh. And show me where you can adjust for the biscuit thickness. Right there. All right. It's got its own little sack there to catch the dust.
And I have it set on 20. So that'll be the depth, which is going to be half the size of one of these.
Okay.
And if I pull the table back and you come look, you see what happens when I put it on the board and push. What happens is a carbide toothed blade comes out and it cuts exactly 1/2 of this.
Huh.
As you can see.
Yeah. That's as fully extended as it gets right there, isn't it?
Yeah, for setting on 20.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Which is the largest they make.
Okay.
So now I've got all my boards marked. I'm going to go ahead and biscuit join them all, restack them, get them all stacked production style. And then once I get them all stacked up, I will, and they're all biscuited, then I'll get into the gluing process and we'll glue them all together. Safety glasses. Must. Pretty quick and easy. Not horrible.
Yeah, that took all of 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah. I like the biscuit joint. Not everybody does for what I'm doing. There's many methods and ways that you can join, do joinery. I do have a shaper, and I have the heads. I could have, put it all together with that type of joint. That's a lot more work and a lot more setup. Takes up a lot more space running them all through the table. Kind of a dangerous tool to use. That's much simpler and faster. Okay. Now it's the clamp thing.
So we use the same clamps that you used the last time for the
doors.
red oak doors, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So now, Josh, you're taking your clamps and you're getting them to the width that you need?
Yeah, I'm getting them close so that once I get them in here, I'm not fighting and struggling with them.
Right. Again, folks, Josh wants comments down at the bottom because the equipment that he's using is what he's got. And some of this equipment is what he feels is the best. Other times it's equipment that he was able to get fairly inexpensively. And it does the job. But if you've got other techniques and or equipment that you like, let Josh know down in the comments.
Yeah, I like that. Let me know. There's a bunch of different ways to do this.
I think sometimes people choose not or delay getting into woodworking because sometimes maybe they feel like they just don't have the tools for it. And it's amazing how you can repurpose some tools and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You get a lot of your tools at secondhand, don't you?
I did. I bought all of these clamps secondhand. I have maybe 1 or 2 clamps that I bought brand new. Those quick grip Irwins that I have, I bought brand new. But other than that,
you go to flea markets or?
Flea markets, the junk store. We have a really good store here called Calvin Kennett's here locally. He gets a lot of estate auctions. And that's where you're really going to find some of your best woodworking tools that have been taken care of. Grandpa or dad set himself up a workshop. He has since left this place. Children, surviving children or family don't have an interest, and the stuff ends up at auction.
Right.
And it's a really, really good way to buy stuff that you can use at a very reasonable price. Garage sales, all those type places. Take these, let's put them on that stack right there.
Okay.
What we're going to do is glue up these 8-footers first.
8-footers are first.
Yeah, and then we'll get into these 4s with another set of bases, a set of clamps. And this is just the beginning of this gluing process, folks. This is just the first days of many. And I'm going to be in here truing up boards, setting them up in here and clamping until I have enough together to manufacture the bookcase. And then I'll go through the planing process again of planing them all down.
And ultimately, what thickness are you going for once you plane these?
Around 3/4.
3/4?
Yeah. Take one of my biscuits and make sure I have all the sawdust out of that joint.
I think I hear it rain.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming. Does sound like it, doesn't it?
A little bit.
We need it. We're really low. Definitely not going to wish it away.
So you're making sure each one of these cutouts for the biscuits are cleaned up.
Sometimes when you let your bottle sit for a week or two, this tip will dry out on you.
Right.
Really get in there and pull that dry glue out. There we go. Believe it or not, in this rain, we're going to go pour some concrete this afternoon.
It's pretty cool.
I like to fill my biscuit first. I'm going to coat this whole edge. Then I like to rub it with my finger or a brush to make sure I'm working that glue into all the pores of that wood. I don't want to see a dry surface anywhere. And I do this with all my glue ups. Doesn't matter what I'm gluing up. Sometimes I use a sponge brush, but most of the time it's just my finger. Make sure I get that coated, work it into the substrate really good. On both pieces, even. I very rarely have a glue joint fail. Most of the time, if I get a failure, it's the wood itself has failed.
And the type of glue you're using is obviously a wood glue, but are they all pretty much similar, or have you found some work better than others?
I have found this particular brand of glue,
which we're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored by them. This Type 3 that they have has only been out maybe for about 10 years. I was always a fan of the Type 1. And then they came out with Type 2, and I really liked it. And the Type 3, man, I tell you, it's if you rub it all in and you get a good substrate going on here, you really get it cleaned up, it's going to stick. And it's going to stick good. And that's what it's really about. It's about having two true edges that really make full contact. And rubbing this glue into the substrate, getting it down into all those pores, making sure that it's really in there.
So now you're inserting your biscuits?
Yeah. And you always want to make sure you make the right size biscuit. If you make the biscuit hole for a 2 and you stick a 1 in there, it's not really going to work. You're not really making full contact. And it might hold for a while.
Some of you might be a little OCD and you're seeing, well, there's all this glue coming out and stuff, and that's okay because these boards ultimately have to be planed further, so we're not worried about any seepage or drips.
Yeah, not at this time. This is still basically rough sawn wood. Just all it's been is, you know, roughed on the sawmill. It's bigger than I need it to be. So I'm really going for a 1x12. And these are still quite a bit longer than that. Now after I plane them down, you know, these are probably over 1 inch right at the moment. When you're clamping wood too, you don't want to over clamp it.
Right, because it would bow upwards.
It'll bow upward, and you'll also stress the wood itself and break down the wood and actually make it weaker. You'll crush the fibers. Put a little clamp on that end too, right there. Let's see which one I want to use. Use this one right here. Yeah. All right. We have the beginnings of a 1x12. We'll squeeze a little bit of glue.
Now, if you were to buy black walnut, already planed, already milled, planed, 1x12, instead of making it like you are now, what are we talking about having to buy? If you can find it, how much are we talking?
First, I don't think you can.
Right.
There are some big box stores that advertise black walnut hardwood. I think I've seen Home Depot have an advertisement for it. I think a 1 inch thick by 16 inches long by 12 inches wide was about $75.
$75.
About that much right there.
16 inches.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about $75. Like this as a 1x12.
Right.
I don't think it's available. I think you have to make it. If it is available, I'm not sure where it's available. I don't know where you'd have to find someone like myself who would make it up for you. Well,
Back in the day, like my great-grandparents' day, they were making a lot of things out of cherry.
Yep.
But if you think about it, there aren't a whole lot of cherry trees you're just cutting down.
No. That was probably wild cherry, not cherry like the fruit cherry.
Right.
I've got a pretty big cherry tree right here. It's not a very straight. You don't get a lot of long, straight logs out of it. There is one over on Airport Road though that's probably 25 feet. It's pretty straight.
Oh wow.
You could get some decent boardage out of.
And folks, we might do a video on just wood, you know, just like different trees and so forth, and let Josh just discuss strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons to different trees and how you might mill them to get what you need.
Yeah, we could definitely do something like that. I'm going to be milling quite a bit of wood either this summer or this winter or next summer. I'm not sure yet how it's going to go. It's going to be weather-wise. Down below my house here, my property has quite a bit of elevation difference on it.
Right.
Down in the hole down there, I've got some really old poplar trees that are really big that are just asking me to come cut them down and mill them into boards for the concrete house so that I can deck what will be the next floor and eventually remain as the ceiling. My wife doesn't really want to look up at a concrete floor, and I don't blame her. It's not the prettiest thing. But if I cut down that poplar and mill it into 1x6s and then shiplap it, use it as decking and leave it, I'll have a really beautiful ceiling. I'll accomplish quite a few things at one time. The ceiling, the decking, and because I'm going to do it for decking and then leave it for ceiling, I'm only doing it once.
So folks, you can see he's going to basically repeat some steps he's already done, and we'll let him do this bead of glue, and then we'll bring you back once we have these boards in place.
None of that stuff.
Not doing cosines and tangents and all that.
Geometry constantly. Not a day goes by that there's not some geometry involved. Okay, man.
So Josh, on this phase of the project, we're taking this beautiful black walnut and we're making larger pieces out of it for side pieces and shelving. And
yeah. These pieces will mostly be shelving. that the books will actually sit on. These longer pieces will be the sides, the bottom, and the top. And we're just one step closer to getting them. And I'm going to, that whole stack of wood that we showed you in the dry kiln, this process has to be done to that whole stack.
And it started with a mill.
Well, it started with a standing tree.
It did.
The process started with a chainsaw.
A chainsaw.
Yeah.
And then milling.
And then milling.
Now we've put the pieces together.
We've biscuited them together.
And then you're going to eventually plane these.
We're going to mill these all again. They're all going to go through the table saw probably 2 more times. They're all going to go through the planer multiple times to get them to where they're perfect. All the same thickness and flat and not cupped all the way across.
Because you can really see the grain as well as the saw cut in this wood as it currently sits. But that planer really makes it a beautiful surface.
Oh, it'll be a finish. The planer will bring it basically to a finished surface.
Right.
Just like on those other pieces I showed you.
And you're not, because you've already got the wall, what would you call it? The
veneer on the wall.
On the wall.
Yeah.
And there's no oil or anything
Nothing
on there. That's dry wood.
No,
I mean,
that's just straight black
and
walnut.
the rest of the bookcase is that way, right?
The rest of the bookcase is going to be that way too. Yeah. They haven't specified that they want any kind of finish on it. They may, in the end, ask me to put a satin poly on it or something so that it doesn't fade over time or anything. Or hold stains.
What tools did we use today?
Today was a very basic day. Other than the table saw to true them up, we've used the biscuit joiner to make the holes for the biscuits. We've used biscuits. I used a tape measure just for a split second. Mostly it was clamps.
Clamps.
And our glue.
Right.
Don't sacrifice on the glue.
And again, we're not sponsored by this particular brand, but that's a Type 3?
This is a Type 3, Type Bond, Type 3. It's been around for about 10 years. You can buy this by the gallon. It's about $30 a gallon. I'd like to buy it by the gallon because on this project, I will probably use close to that.
Wow.
By the time I'm done.
And how much of the bookcase are we looking at here on the table?
You're looking at about
10%, 20%?
Probably more like 15, 20%.
15, 20.
I would say 15, 20%.
So you got to go through the same process probably 4 more times.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to plane these boards until I have all of them glued up. I'll take these out of the clamps later on today, get another set lined up, get them in here, get them glued up, let them sit, and it'll be a very repetitive process until I have all of them glued up into a 12.
And we're looking at about 3 hours from the setup?
Yeah, 3 hours in the clamps.
Okay.
And then they're ready to come out.
And safety-wise, mainly just go out with the safety glasses and
Safety
just
glasses,
being safe around the saw.
Yeah, don't stick your hand in the saw.
Don't put your hand in between the board and the clamps. But
don't crank your finger down on the clamp.
we don't want to mash our fingers or saw them off. We need every finger we've got.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, folks, for Odd Jobs Hijinks, again, this is a wonderful project, and we've got an entire playlist that this will be inserted into. But keep watching. We've got, we won't show more of this. This is now the phase of showing you how this lumber is coming together. Yeah. The next phase we'll show you is probably planing this.
Yeah, we'll get back to, we'll do a segment of this getting planed down. And once all this is planed down and ready, we'll be transporting it to the location where it's going to be installed. And we'll do the install, and we'll have some photos of the finished product for it.
All righty. Well, tell us how we get out of here.
Odd Jobs Hijinks. Subscribe and like.